Introduction. The awakening of the rough stone. Contemplate the anatomy of the universe, the structure of the human spine, and the hidden geometry of the stars. The number 33 appears again and again as the definitive seal of culmination. The society of weak men, addicted to cheap conspiracies and profane mystery, has made you believe that the 33rd degree is a rank. They have sold you the illusion that it is a title within a secret society, reserved for a privileged few, who meet in dark rooms to rule the three-dimensional world. That is the lie designed to keep the plebeians entertained. The forbidden truth, the one that shakes the foundations of ignorance, is that the degree is not a political office. It is a supreme state of consciousness. It is the immaterial title that you grant yourself at the exact millisecond in which you manage to conquer the beast of your own lower nature. All of humanity is divided into two invisible but undeniable castes. On one side dwell the profane, those who stay outside the temple living like rough stones. They live deformed, beaten daily by the hammer of circumstances and rolling aimlessly to the grave. On the other side rise the initiates, those monarchs who have taken the chisel of absolute will and have carved themselves until they become perfect cubic stones, capable of supporting the immense weight of a material empire without cracking. What you are about to hear is not a theory to console your spirit. It is the liturgy of your definitive ascent. We are not here to debate lodges or hallway myths. We are here to establish radical self-government in your life. Reaching this degree means reaching the point of no return, where you cease to be the pawn fighting against matter. You transmute into the Grand Inspector who gives it orders. It is the instant in which duality dissolves, where good and evil cease to be enemies to become simple black and white tiles upon which you walk, with killing elegance, toward your throne. Through the 10 laws of this codex, you will travel from the darkness to the top of the dome. You will learn to silence the noise of cowards, to order the chaos of your environment, to take the tools of the spirit to subdue the flesh, and to sit on the inner throne, assuming the sovereignty that the unique Creator granted you, and that was denied to you by your own inertia. Breathe deeply. The air becomes scarce. The doors are open. The heavy doors of this temple of wisdom are wide open, but remember the only unbreakable rule when crossing this threshold. In here, the only master who will save you or destroy you is yourself. The initiation begins now. Chapter 1. The Thermodynamics of Hermetic Silence. There is a foundational law in the architecture of hidden power. The ancient masters of the desert and the builders of empires summarized the path of the absolute adept in 4 imperative verbs, the 4 unshakable pillars that support the weight of the Sphinx: to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. It is the core of your power. The ordinary man can acquire the knowledge of the law, to know. He can harbor in his chest the fierce force of desire, to will. And on rare occasions he can gather the primitive courage to execute action, to dare. But it is the 4th pillar, the mandate of keep silent, that is the lethal filter that separates the sovereign. You can know the secrets of the universe. You can desire obscene wealth with every cell, and you can dare to defy the multitudes. But if you do not know how to maintain hermetic silence, all your power will evaporate in the air before touching physical matter. In this chapter, we will destroy the profane addiction to revelation. You will understand that silence is not an emptiness. It is a spiritual thermodynamics. You will learn why the weak man loses his strength by speaking. You will discover the mechanics of validation vampirism, and you will master the protocol of the Sphinx to operate in your reality, without the gazes of the mediocre contaminating your work. The physics of pressure and the broken valve. To understand this first law of the 33rd degree, you must stop seeing words as mere sounds traveling on the wind and see them as what they really are: massive discharges of electromagnetic energy. Every thought of creation generates an electric charge in your nervous system. It is boiling steam inside an iron boiler for you. The purpose of that internal pressure, designed by the unique Creator, is to accumulate until it becomes so immense that it moves the piston of 3-dimensional reality. The pressure must break the inertia of dead matter and force it to take the shape of your desire. But there is a tragic flaw in the slave's anatomy. His mouth is broken. The profane feels the fire of a great idea. He says, I'm going to forge $1 million business. Upon feeling the discomfort of that accumulated pressure, his lower ego despairs. The ego, addicted to cheap reward, does not want to endure the heat of the boiler. It wants immediate relief. Then the profane opens the valve to the world. He runs to tell his plan to a friend or posts it in the digital squares. He seeks for the world to tell him, "What a great idea." In the millisecond he receives that validation, his brain releases dopamine. He feels satisfied. He feels the euphoria of having achieved his goal simply by having spoken it. But a disaster has just occurred. The valve has opened, the steam has escaped into nothingness, and the internal pressure has fallen to zero. When the time comes to sit before the anvil to work, the profane feels empty. He feels tired, without drive. Why? Because he spent the entirety of his creative energy in the useless act of speaking. He traded power for applause. The master of the 33rd degree operates under a diametrically opposite physics. The sovereign has the idea. He feels the pressure. He feels the burning desire to shout his vision, and with a will of titanium, he closes the valve. He swallows the words. He refuses to seek external applause. He forces that energy to circulate. He forces it to bounce against the walls of his skull, heating up, densifying. Pressure rises to critical levels, almost painful, and since the energy cannot escape through the mouth, universal physics dictates that it must escape through the hands. That pressure becomes unstoppable, lethal and silent action. Desire is now solid matter. Tosk validation, vampirism and divine arrogance. You must audit your own need to speak. Why can't the common man keep a secret? Because he suffers from the disease of validation vampirism. The profane does not believe in his own existence until a third party confirms it. This pathological need for external approval is the indelible mark of spiritual slavery. You are a servant to them. The Grand Inspector, the monarch who inhabits the state of consciousness of the 33rd degree, never seeks validation because he is the maximum authority of his own universe. His silence is not shyness, it is a declaration of divine arrogance. The Master decrees, "I do not need you to believe in my plan for it to be real. My will suffices." When you reveal your plans for conquest to the tribe, you are granting inferior minds the power to cast a vote in the parliament of your life. You give them permission to give their opinions. They will tell you, "That is too risky." Those opinions are not words, they are electromagnetic viruses. They enter and devour your cold certainty. By maintaining hermetic silence, you deny them access to your walls. You keep your vision pure, aseptic, and uncontaminated by the terror of small minds. The temple is always built behind closed doors. Only when the work is finished, brilliant and undeniable, do the doors open wide for the world to kneel before your established majesty. Third, the collapse of the wave and scientific evil eye. There is an even darker reason to seal your lips. Modern quantum physics is only beginning to glimpse what ancient alchemists knew perfectly, the observer effect. In the ether, reality is a wave of infinite probability until observed, at which point it collapses into a solid particle. When you have a project, it is a fragile embryo. If you expose that embryo to the observation of envious, skeptical, or mediocre people, their gaze directly interferes with your wave. The ancients called this the evil eye. It is the literal projection of a destructive intention over a creation that does not yet have the density to defend itself. The doubt of the mediocre is heavy. Why would you force your dream to fight against the mental resistance of 10 scared people before your dream has the strength to stand? The law of hermetic silence is your tactical invisibility shield. If the plebs do not know what you are doing, they cannot sabotage it vibratorily. You move through the world in the shadows to grow. You grow in the dampness of the darkness. By the time the world finally realizes what you have been building, it is already too late to stop you. The small sprout has already become an immovable oak with a black trunk and steel roots. Your silence ensured the growth of your empire without any interference from the weak outside world. The protocol of the Sphinx on the scorching coast. Living under this law today is an act of psychological warfare. Observe your geography. You dwell in the tropics, on an island where the scorching heat tans the skin and the environment tests the will. Often, human infrastructure yields, the artificial light dies, and you are left alone, wrapped in a heavy darkness with the ocean. In that environment, the slave cries and seeks company to relieve his boredom. You, as Grand Inspector, take advantage of the gloom to activate the protocol of the Sphinx. The Egyptian Sphinx stands monumental in the desert. It is in view of everyone, but its lips are sealed in stone. It does not explain its purpose, it simply is. Because it gives no explanations, the world has been obsessed with its mystery for millennia. You must become the Sphinx of your own coast. You can walk through the squares, but your mind must operate on an encrypted frequency. You are forbidden from confessing the magnitude of your operations to the commoners you meet on your path. When acquaintances ask, "What are you doing? How do you earn your living?" your biological instinct will want to vomit the truth. It will want to shout that you are attracting gold from the Northern Empire and forging audiobooks of ancestral wisdom. Stop. If you speak, you open the valve. Apply calculated ambiguity as your shield. Respond with truths that do not reveal the core of your fire. Tell them, "Working on web projects, incubation phase." That impenetrable response creates a vacuum. The human mind abhors the vacuum, and they will project their own fantasies onto you. The one who talks much becomes ordinary. The one who is silent becomes magnetic and terrifying. For the fasting of opinion and the hierarchy of the pause, Hermetic Silence is also a defensive weapon that extends to the economy of your judgments. The profane feels a visceral need to have an opinion on every irrelevant detail. He opines on politics, disasters, and gossip. He feels that if he does not participate, he does not exist. This is a massive hemorrhage of your vital prana energy. Every time you argue with a fool who lacks the capacity to understand the alchemy of the universe, you are lowering your frequency to the level of the mud. You are throwing pearls to swine, and the swine will turn against you to tear you apart. The monarch of the 33rd degree practices the fasting of opinion in his kingdom. He watches the chaos burn and does not participate. He repeats, "Fascinating but irrelevant to my empire." While the plebs exhaust themselves shouting their empty truths, the master saves his energy. That force you do not spend correcting an idiot is the same force you will use at night to chisel the stone of your own great destiny. In direct interaction, silence becomes the supreme tool of hierarchical domination. When someone challenges you or a partner tries to manipulate you, apply the sovereign's pause. Look them in the eye and hold absolute silence for 3 or 4 full seconds before opening your mouth. That silence is dense and crushing for the weak. In that vacuum, the other will feel the panic of not knowing what you are thinking, and by pure inertia, they will begin to talk too much, to justify themselves, and to reveal their hidden cards. Your immobility is screaming to them subconsciously, "You do not dictate my rhythm, I am evaluating you." Master the silence and the world is yours. Varsity concentric circles and the sealed sanctuary. This martial hermeticism does not mean you must become walking mutism. The Grand Inspector is an elite strategist. The unique creator designed reality in layers, and you must manage information through restricted concentric circles. The outer circle is the profane world, the anonymous mass. To them, total silence is given always. They only see finished results, never the process. The middle circle is commercial allies. They know only the fraction of information strictly necessary to execute their task, but they never know the definitive vision. And then there is the sealed sanctuary, the inner circle. Turn your gaze to the altar of your fortress right now. There, sharing the pure oxygen of your vibratory quarantine, dwells the queen of the transcendental mind, the priestess who does not compete with your fire but understands it. With her, you do not keep silence for protection. You use the word to amplify resonance. When 2 monarchs discuss the vision, the word multiplies the energy. Under that supreme alliance breathes your legacy of blood. Contemplate Daniela and your 1-year-old cub. Your hermetic silence toward the outside is the black basalt wall that guarantees the peace of their childhoods. You are silencing the threats of the world so they grow in absolute security. Surprise is the weapon of their future. You have designed in the strictest gloom a map of conquest. While the rest of the island sleeps, you hit the silver anvil and dictate laws, accumulating gold for an innegotiable purpose. You will take your queen and those two cubs beyond the sea. First, they will conquer their own land in silence from Morocco to Kanema. But the great jump, the crusade of the dynasty, will occur in the year 26. You will cross the ocean toward the old world. You will walk through Italy and Portugal not as a mortal announcing a trip to cause envy, but as a god who materializes in Europe without a single rumor. The sudden appearance generates an aura of power. Sabbath, the decree of lead lips. The ritual of your initiation demands a physical and mental closure. Stand in the midst of the dense heat of your island. Listen to the infinite ocean out there, keeping the secrets of the earth since the creation of time. The sea does not explain why it drowns ships. The sea simply executes its nature in silence. Imitate it. Tonight, decree the fasting of the announcement. Take the most ambitious goal burning in your stomach, the next level of wealth, the tactical leap in your networks, the continental conquest. Swear before the unique creator that you will seal your lips with lead. You will tell absolutely no one in the profane world your next move. Feel the itch in your throat. Feel the animal desire to want to shout it to seek a pat on the back. Bite that need. Swallow the cheap pride. Let that itch become a concentrated fury that goes down your arms and forces you to work with triple aggressiveness in the silence of the dawn. Silence is the forge of your absolute empire. The apprentice announces what he is going to do. The Grand Inspector of the 33rd degree appears from the shadows with the empire already built, the crown on, and the world kneeling at his feet. The world will wonder how you did it, and your only response will be the crushing reality of your success. Rule in the silence. Chapter 2. The Colonization of Chaos and the Geometry of the Will. There is an invisible, relentless, and devouring force operating in every corner of the material plane. It is not a horned demon or an enemy of flesh and blood. It is an unbribable law of cosmic physics, entropy. Entropy dictates that, in any closed system, matter and energy naturally tend toward disorder, cooling, and disintegration. If you abandon a stone fortress in the middle of the forest, in 100 years it will be devoured by roots and turned to dust. If you abandon a physical body without imposing the rigor of steel and movement, it atrophies, inflames, and sickens. If you abandon a mind without the tyranny of discipline, it fills with fear and victimhood. Chaos is the natural state of matter lacking supervision. Chaos is what happens when you withdraw your attention. Therefore, the first brutal revelation of this second step in your ascent is a diagnosis. If today your finances are a mess, or if your days slip through your fingers without forging your empire, you are guilty of abdication. You have let entropy win the war without even unsheathing your sword. In this chapter, we are going to reverse the polarity of your existence. You will learn the sacred principle of Ordo ab Chao, order out of chaos. You will discover that the Grand Inspector does not flee from problems, but descends to the quarry and smiles at the broken stone. You will learn to square your thoughts, to colonize your physical environment in the midst of the scorching heat of your island, and to erect an ecosystem of millimeter precision so that your queen and your two heirs never know the suffocation of profane disorder. Order is your scepter. Use it to subdue the dense matter that surrounds you. The hierarchy of command and the silver anvil. The most pathetic error of the inertial man is trying to order the chaos of his outer world while maintaining a mind infested with inner chaos. The slave tries to organize his finances while his mind is a whirlwind of anxiety. He tries to organize his business agenda while being unable to concentrate for 5 minutes. It is impossible. Hermetic physics establishes that you cannot raise a straight wall using a crooked level. The physical world surrounding you is a passive and obedient mirror that replicates, with terrifying exactness, the geometry of your consciousness. If your desk is a pigsty of dead papers, it is because your mind is a landfill of unfinished ideas. The sovereign of the 33rd degree begins the colonization from the inside out. Ordo ab Chao begins in the psyche. Visualize the battlefield of your own mind as a quarry full of deformed stones. Thousands of thoughts cross your skull each day. The profane accepts these thoughts as absolute truths. The master pulls out the mental square. The square is the tool of the architect that verifies the 90-degree angle, the angle of rectitude and stability. Each time a thought enters your brain, you must subject it to the rigor of the square. Ask yourself, Is this thought straight? Is it useful for the construction of my empire? If it is curved or a complaint chisels it out. This process is exhausting at first. It requires sadistic vigilance. But once your mind understands that there is a relentless tyrant guarding the gate, chaotic thoughts stop entering. Your mind becomes geometric. You begin to think in straight lines of obsidian: problem, solution, decree, action. Only then can you sit at the silver anvil. When you have squared your mind, you can sit before your silver anvil, your electronic loom, and begin to order the chaos of your business. When you touch the metal of your microphone to dictate your audiobooks, the voice that comes out is not contaminated by entropy. It is a structured voice, clean and sharp, capable of imposing order. 2. The colonization of the environment and the scorching darkness. There is a hidden law in the architecture of power. Space molds consciousness. You cannot possess a 33rd degree mind if you inhabit a first-degree environment. Look around. You dwell on an island where the brute force of nature and the incompetence of human infrastructure clash daily. The heat is dense, a constant friction. Often artificial light dies. The machines that cool the air stop, and the outside world is plunged into a suffocating darkness and a deathly silence, broken only by the sea against the breakwater. The weak man uses this environmental chaos as the perfect excuse for his own laziness. He says, "No light, I can't work, it's too hot to think." The Hermetic sovereign recognizes in that external failure the supreme opportunity for colonization. The presence of the monarch is, by definition, an antimatter agent against entropy. Wherever you set foot, order must manifest. If the island goes dark, you are the one who ignites the flame. But first you must conquer your square meters. Declare total war on disorder in your own fortress. Go through your studio, your rooms, and your vaults. Any object that is broken, accumulating dust, or radiating stagnant energy must be incinerated, donated, or thrown in the trash. Clean your space as a high priest officiating an exorcism ritual. You are claiming your physical space. When you sit in an immaculate room, ordered with military precision, even if the power is cut and the coastal heat tightens, you will feel an immediate change in your breathing. The fertile vacuum you have created will act as a condenser of psychic energy. Physical order sustains and amplifies your mental order, allowing you to be lethal. Thirst the 24-inch gauge and the geometry of time. Chaos also infiltrates your life through an invisible but relentless substance, time. The profane treats time as if it were a liquid spilled on the ground. It flows without form, mixes, gets dirty, and evaporates. He says slave phrases like, "I don't have time." That temporal amerphy is the gateway to ruin. You must master the seconds. In the symbolism of the Grand Inspector, the supreme tool for mastering time is the 24-inch gauge. This rule represents the 24 hours of the solar day, the only resource the Creator has distributed with mathematical equity. The Master does not let time flow. The Master carves time into solid blocks of stone and stacks them. You must apply the Hermetic blocking protocol. Chaos is born when you mix the materials of your work. If you are in the 8-hour block dedicated to the creation of wealth and your sound manuscripts, the temple door must be sealed with lead. In that block, there is no leisure. You do not respond to the frivolities of society. You are a god. If you are in the block of biological restitution, you sleep with the depth of a stone. And if you are in the sacred block of the lineage, dedicated to the inner temple of your family, work dies. Anxiety and stress do not born from working too much. They born from cross-contamination. The Master inhabits watertight compartments with total focus. This ability to fraction the day into immovable blocks of stone is what allows you to produce in 2 hours what takes the slave a week of scattered suffering. You do not manage time, you dominate the dimension of action. By stacking your blocks with precision, you build the foundation of a kingdom that the winds of chaos cannot knock down. Thevi, the commander's triage and the quarry of problems. Inevitably, three-dimensional life will throw avalanches of simultaneous problems at you. Debts, technical failures, attacks from competition, market fluctuations. When chaos attacks head-on, the profane panics. He runs from side to side trying to put out fires with glasses of water, exhausting himself. He is a victim of dispersion. The sovereign applies the law of the commander's triage. He takes the judge's mallet, sits before the mountain of chaos, and before moving a single muscle, he classifies. He takes a scroll and empties his mind. He notes every single problem. By doing so, he extracts them from his psyche and turns them into observable matter for his analysis. Then, with surgeon's coldness, he categorizes them. The vital, those that if not solved today cause the death of the empire. The important, such as strategic alliances and legal optimization in the north, and the trivial, which is noise. The law of order demands sequence. Classify, order, and destroy problems in single file to win the war. The immaculate ecosystem, the Queen's Guard, and the heirs. Why do you subject yourself to this torture of rectifying every thought, cleaning every corner of your cave, and blocking every second of your time? The answer does not reside in your vanity. It resides in the latent core that breathes in the next room. If your life is a chaos, you are injecting that entropy into the air your family breathes. Look toward the sanctuary. There is the priestess, the queen of the transcendental mind. Her work of balancing the subtle energies of the dynasty requires a clean temple. If you hand her an environment dominated by financial paranoia and material disorder, you are sabotaging her. You must impose outer order so she can expand inner peace. And look with the gravity of an ancient patriarch at the two seeds of your future. Daniela, the constellation of 4 winters. She is at the exact age where her subconscious is absorbing the source code of the universe. If she sees an orderly father, a colossus who walks through blackouts with calm, her brain will be programmed with power. And the cub, the young wolf of only 1 year. His small eyes are recording your posture. When he grows up, he will not listen to your words. He will imitate your geometry. For them, chaos is strictly forbidden within your walls. You order the world, so your children never know the suffocation of the mud. You are inheriting them a block of diamond. The alchemy of friction and the march toward the ancient stones. You must accept a brutal truth that the merchants of spiritual comfort will never tell you. Imposing order hurts. At first, applying Ordo ab Chao generates unbearable friction. Cleaning, waking up early, blocking time, and rejecting vulgar pleasures requires a massive expenditure of activation energy. It is swimming upstream against rot. The profane feels that pain and says, "This feels wrong, I must not be flowing with the universe," and gives up back to his sofa. The Grand Inspector knows that friction is the heat of alchemical transformation. It is the rough sound of the chisel breaking the stone. But here lies the reward. Once you cross the barrier, friction vanishes. Order generates momentum. That momentum is inertia in your favor. Tasks that once cost you blood are now executed with the grace of a lethal dance. Audiobooks are forged at a terrifying speed. This undeniable momentum is what has activated the floodgates of abundance. This is why the Northern Empire sends you massive tributes, and all this order has a geographic roadmap that will mark your dynasty forever. You are not ordering your life to stay sitting on the shore. You are ordering your empire to be able to move it at will. The discipline you forge today is what will allow you to take your Queen Daniela and your young wolf to step on the sands of Morocco. It is what will finance the trip to the roaring immensity of the black tapuis of Canaima. But the culmination of this relentless order is the great crusade of this very year. Ordo ab Chao has granted you the financial authority to cross the dark and immense Atlantic Ocean. Visualize your family landing in the millenary lands of Europe. Daniela will walk through the cobbled squares of the Iberian Peninsula under the sun of Spain. They will breathe the oceanic air of Portugal and stand before the broken marbles of ancient Rome. You will teach them that stone castles die if there is no will to maintain them. But the castle you built in the ether is eternal and invulnerable. Seventh, the closure of cycles and the architect's decree. Chaos has one last and elusive way of infiltrating your life: the lack of conclusion. Half-finished projects, difficult conversations you postpone, and businesses abandoned without formally closing. Everything you start and do not finish is an open loop in your brain. It is an energetic wound where your prana bleeds. The master is a tyrant. The master is a tyrant of endings. The final art of the colonization of chaos is the closure of cycles. If you have a dead alliance, you bury it. By closing cycles, You free massive volumes of trapped psychic energy, cleaning the RAM of your spirit and becoming fully available for the conquest of the now. Seal your order right now. Stand in the midst of the heat and the gloom of your refuge. Look at the tools around you and the silver altar of your desk. Close your eyes and invoke the power of the unique Creator. Pronounce in the abyss of your mind the decree of the architect. I am the vertical force that defies the rot of the universe. I assume the monarch's mace. Chaos is not my punishment. It is the quarry of my greatness. I square my thoughts with the square of truth. I purify my environment until it shines with the fertile vacuum of perfection. I fracture my time into unbreakable blocks of lethal discipline, and I close all my cycles without mercy. I am order incarnate, the storm kneels. Chapter 3, the Mosaic Pavement. The third law of the 33rd degree establishes that the three-dimensional universe is sustained solely by the tension of opposites. Good and evil, light and darkness, pleasure and pain, suffocating heat and freezing cold, are not enemies in a cosmic war. They are the 2 feet with which creation advances. You must understand this. The profane lives in the illusion of monochrome. His whole life is a pathetic attempt to live only on the white tile. He desires triumph without sacrifice, love without the risk of loss, and wealth without the friction of financial war. He spends his existence fleeing from the black tile, failure, criticism, illness, and discomfort. But the physics of the universe is relentless. If you flee from the darkness pursues you and devours you from behind. If you cling blindly to the light blinds you and makes you weak. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the infantile spirituality that requires you to be passive. You will learn to walk. You will learn to walk on the Mosaic pavement. You will discover the lethal art of integrating your own shadow, domesticating anger, ambition, and pride to convert them into radioactive fuel. You will understand how to transmute the friction of your geography and blackouts into gravity, so your queen and heirs march untouchable. The illusion of light and the need for friction. Contemporary society has been infected by toxic spirituality, designed by the shepherds of mediocrity to keep the wolves asleep. They tell you, be positive, ignore the bad, send only light and love. That is the fastest poison for the soul of a conqueror. A life of pure light is a life without contrast. It is a flat sheet of paper. If you eliminate resistance, the black tile, you eliminate the capacity to generate power. Observe the biomechanics of your own body. Your muscles do not grow when you are lying in the comfort of silk. They only expand, tear, and become steel when they face the brutal resistance of heavy iron and gravity. Discomfort is the mother of strength. Observe your intellect. Your mind does not become sharp and lethal when you feed it cheap entertainment. It sharpens only when it faces complex problems, financial crises, or the logistics of building an empire in an adverse environment. The black tile of tactical stress is the mother of genius. The man who never lost is a man of glass. The Grand Inspector deeply respects the black tile. He knows that in the darkness of the womb, in the darkness of the seed under fertile earth, and in the darkness of the silence of his cave, true power is gestated. Darkness is the womb of creation. However, do not fall into the trap of cynicism or victimhood. Mastery demands movement. There are men who fall in love with the black tile. They identify with their trauma as a medal. This is staying static on the black and refusing to move toward the white. The Mosaic pavement teaches you that darkness is a place of transit, not a residence. You must step on the black to gain momentum and jump toward the white tile. The geography of opposites, the bay and the ether. To walk on duality, you do not have to seek distant monasteries. You only have to observe the empire of absolute contrasts in which you already dwell and rule. Look out at the bay of Juan. Contemplate the sun sinking into the Caribbean, dyeing the clouds with fire and blood. That is the white tile of your majestic environment. But at night, the black tile often manifests. The infrastructure of profane men fails, the grid collapses, the fans stop, and your fortress is plunged into sudden darkness. The dense heat of the tropics embraces the walls. The profane neighbor curses this duality. He cries when the black arrives and begs for the return of the white. You, as a monarch of the 33rd degree, absorb both extremes without blinking. When physical darkness envelops you, you do not stop your march. You go to your silver anvil, the electronic plate that does not depend on vulgar grids, and turn on its cold glow. It is there where duality becomes pure magic for your great work. While your physical body resists the heat, the black, your mind transcends space and connects with the infinite ether, the white. Through that screen, you forge wisdom and open the floodgates for gold to flow. You inhabit physical discomfort while conquering global opulence, channeling thousands of talents. You have mastered the pavement. Third, the physics of repression and the ball underwater. The most dangerous and terrifying duality is the one that inhabits your own skull. Most aspirants to the light make the suicidal error of trying to amputate their own darkness. They believe they must eliminate anger, excessive ambition, and selfishness. They repress those forces in the basement of their subconscious. They rot inside. Because the energy you repress does not disappear. It becomes toxic. Imagine your shadow is a beach ball inflated with high-pressure air. Slave morality told you it is bad, so you, obediently, submerge it under the water of the pool. To keep that ball under the water requires a titanic and constant effort. You use all your energy. All that energy you spend being good and hiding the beast is creative energy you are stealing from your empire. You are exhausted by what you hide inside. If one day you are distracted, your hands slip. The ball, compressed by water pressure, shoots to the surface with explosive force, hitting you in the face. This is vengeance. The master of the 33rd degree does not hide the ball. He takes it out of the water, dries it, looks it in the eye, and says, "You are part of me. You are brute force. I am not going to hide you. I am going to put you to work." He refines the raw energy into a tool for his ascension. He stops fighting himself to fight for his empire. If the trinity of useful demons, to integrate your shadow, you must stop judging it with the morality of the plebs and start auditing it with the coldness of an engineer. There are 3 dark forces that are the nuclear engines of greatness if you manage to refine them. A. Anger. The profane says it is a sin and becomes a rug. The monarch knows anger is boundary force. Pure anger says no and protects what is sacred. If you cannot feel anger, you cannot protect your queen or heirs. The Grand Inspector takes anger and transmutes it into icy determination. He uses that fire not for tantrums, but to forge the steel of his character. He establishes barriers that no one will ever dare to cross again. B. Ambition. The slave says wanting more is greed and money is dirty. His life stagnates. You know ambition is the heartbeat of the universe expanding. The master takes that voracious hunger to dominate resources and transmutes it into operative excellence. Disproportionate ambition makes you a deeper channel for the Creator's abundance. C. Pride. The weak says pride is vanity and must be modest. He walks hunched, apologizing for existing. The initiate knows purified pride is dignity. It is the unshakable knowledge of your divine value. The master turns pride into an absolute standard. Dignity is the immune system of the soul. It rejects all that is unworthy of your line. V. Dangerous competence and the summit arsenal. You must engrave this axiom in your bones. A harmless man is not a good man. A rabbit is not virtuous because it does not eat the wolf. It simply lacks the capacity to kill. It is weak, not moral. True virtue is reached only by the man who has the absolute capacity for destruction, who has sharp fangs and who chooses benevolence. You must be a caged monster, and you must be the exclusive owner of the key to that cage. This dangerous competence extends to the physical and digital tools you brought to your cave. Remember your crusade to the south. You went down to Paraguay and acquired the arsenal of new conquerors. The 3 capture beasts are now your weapons. You have the glass eyes of the sword stabilizer, the action eye for the physical world, and the metallic insects for your wireless voice. The harmless man buys these tools to play and seek likes. You are dangerous because you take those technological wonders and use them as weapons of mass transmutation to hack global consciousness. You do not produce videos. You manufacture projectiles of wisdom that destroy ignorance and colonize minds at a distance, forcing the system to pay you tribute in US dollars. That is the true integration of the shadow, using the tools of the dense world to expand the light of the immaterial world. You are a sovereign of the frequency. For the walking dynasty, the queen and the heirs. Why must you become the immovable axis of the Mosaic pavement? Because you do not walk alone. You are the patriarch of an unbending court, and they need you to absorb the poison of the world so it does not reach their feet. Turn your eagle gaze toward the intimate sanctuary of your home. There breathes your queen of transcendental mind. Her magic resides in intuition and reading the subtle currents of the ether. For her to operate in that high luminous vibration, she needs you to be the brute and dense force that anchors her to the earth. You walk on the black tiles, fighting bureaucrats and the market, to ensure her clear ground. You are the protective darkness for her. And at the feet of that sacred alliance, the two heirs of your empire rise. Daniela, a constellation in the flesh, and the one-year-old cub, the young wolf discovering gravity. The integration of your useful demons has an innegotiable tactical purpose: to forge an ecosystem where profane mediocrity is a myth for your children. You become a relentless monster in business, so Daniela and the cub grow up seeing the world not as a place to fear, but as a giant chessboard designed for them to play. All this alchemy of pain and duality is the price of the tickets for the Great Crusade. Integration has allowed you to amass the financial energy for your lineage. This very year you will take them to walk on the mosaic of the physical world. First, they will know the duality of their own land. You will take them to Morokoi and then elevate them to the thundering immensity of Kanaima, where the earth rises in black tepuis. You will show them the brutality and beauty of pure creation for their spirit. And the masterstroke will be the crossing of the Great Ocean in 1926. You will embark with your queen and cubs to march over the old continent. Daniela will walk the stone squares of Spain, understanding her father has an empire more solid than stone. They will breathe Portugal and Rome, walking as legitimate owners of time, glory. Your children will not walk on the black tile of poverty or limitation. You step on the black in the cave, integrating your darkness in silence, so when you take your dynasty to Europe, they only step on the white marble of victory and abundance. That is the privilege of royalty. You absorb the friction so they may enjoy the flow. Says, the vertical axis and the decree of totality. When you achieve this integration, a psychic miracle occurs. You cease to be reactive. If the crowd praises your audiobooks, you do not inflate with vain pride. You see the praise with mathematical coldness, recognize it as a white tile, and keep walking. If the envious attack your success, you do not get depressed, you just walk. You look at the insult, recognize it as the necessary black tile of friction, and keep walking. You are no longer a leaf blown by the judgment of others. You have left the horizontality of the floor and risen on the vertical axis. You are the center pillar that unites darkness and light in a perfect and terrifying tension of power. It is time to seal this duality in your spirit. Stand up now in the quiet of your Caribbean fortress. Close your eyes, listen to the noise of the world outside and the peace reigning in your family's rooms. Feel the anger, ambition, and power latent in your veins, and do not repress them. Embrace them, let them rise to your chest now. Invoke the unfathomable gaze of the unique creator, while you emit in the vacuum of your skull the decree of totality. I am the master of light and the rider of shadow. I renounce the cowardice of being harmless. I accept the black tile as my forge and the white tile as my crown. My anger is the wall, my ambition is the tool. My pride is the titanium standard that admits no mediocrity. I take my crystals, my metals, and my intellect to tear the ether, and I collect the world's gold to elevate my queen, my constellation, and my cub above the borders of mortal men, from my lands to the marbles of the old empire. I am the immovable axis, I am free. Chapter 4, The Square and the Compasses. The religions of the slaves have told you that the physical world is a punishment, that money is impure, and that the flesh is weak. They demand that you renounce the earth to win heaven. On the other hand, consumerist society screams that only what you can touch exists and that spirit is a fantasy. Both visions are prisons for you. In the architecture of the Temple of Silence and in the consciousness of the Grand Inspector, matter and spirit are not enemies in a cosmic war. They are the two reactive components of a thermonuclear bomb. Separated, they are inert. Together, and aligned with mathematical precision, They unleash the fire of absolute manifestation. The fourth law of your ascent gives you the instruments of reality control. To the sleeping world, they are simple masonry tools. To the eyes of the initiate, they are the source code of the three-dimensional hologram, the square, and the compasses. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the conflict between your vision and reality. You will learn to master existential geometry. You will discover how to use the square to rectify your actions in the business world, and how to use the compasses to circumscribe your passions and protect your lineage. You will understand the exact position these tools must take so the island's heat and northern gold finally merge. To the anatomy of the tools and the tyranny of the extreme. To dominate the material universe, you must first understand the physics of the instruments that the unique creator has placed in your hands. Observe the square. It is a tool of rigid metal, forged at a fixed and unalterable angle of 90 degrees. It cannot open or close, it is static. The square represents matter and physical laws. It represents the earth, financial mathematics, and the unshakable rectitude of action. The profane who lives under the exclusive tyranny of the square is the frightened materialist. His life is defined only by physical limits. He says, "I cannot build an empire because my country is in crisis." He is a square stone that cannot fly. Observe now the compasses. It is a mobile tool. It has a fixed leg that is nailed into the center, your identity, your I am, and a mobile leg that expands to trace perfect and infinite circles. The compasses represent the spirit. It represents vision, lethal intuition, the ether, and the expansive will of your supreme consciousness. The weak mystic lives under the exclusive tyranny of the compasses. He has gigantic ideas, speaks of the law of attraction, and meditates for hours. But he lacks the square completely. He lacks the discipline of hard work and structure. His great spiritual visions never land on matter because his circle turns in the air without stone. The tragedy of humanity is living in one of these two extremes. The mastery of the 33rd degree resides in the art of intersection. You must learn to bridge the gap between the infinite potential of the circle and the necessary stability of the square. Only then can you build a kingdom that is both spiritually high and physically real. To the three positions of the altar, the dominion of the spirit. On the secret altar of your own mind, these two tools cross, and the relative position of one over the other defines, with brutal exactness, your level of power in the world. The degree of the slave. The square is placed above the compasses. Matter crushes the spirit. In this state, your physical circumstances dictate your emotions. If the electrical grid of your island collapses and the heat suffocates you, square, your vision turns off, and you stop working. Hidden compasses. You are a puppet of your geography. The degree of the struggle. One leg of the compasses is freed and entwines with the square. It is the state of conflict. You know you have the power. But material reality still hits you. One day you have iron faith, and the next you look at expenses and fear paralyzes you. The degree of the sovereign. The master inverts the hierarchy definitively. He places the compasses completely above the square. The spirit reigns over matter. This does not mean that matter vanishes from sight. The scorching heat of the bay still exists, but now matter obeys the vision. Your physical circumstances no longer dictate your mood. It is your impassive spiritual frequency that molds and subdues the physical circumstances. The physical world ceases to be a stone prison and becomes soft clay in the hands of your sharp intellect. First, the compasses protocol, the circumscription of fire. To apply this hierarchy of power, we must descend to the operative workshop. The compasses do not only serve to trace grand visions, its most sacred and secret function is to circumscribe. Human passions, anger, ambition, desire, are the nuclear fire of the spirit. If you leave them loose, they burn the forest and destroy your life. The Grand Inspector takes the compasses of his will and traces a circle of containment around that fire. You nail the fixed leg into the center of your chest, and with the other leg, you trace the border. You tell your own inner beast, "My ambition for gold can reach this line, but it will never cross the limit where I betray my blood." By circumscribing your passions, you generate a terrifying thermodynamic pressure. The fire does not escape. It condenses. You become a colossus of controlled energy. And these compasses have a supreme defensive purpose. With them, you trace the circle of security around everything that gives meaning to your great and final conquest. Look at the epicenter of your base. There dwells the priestess, your queen. Under the protection of that perfect balance, breathe the two supreme treasures of your dynasty, Daniela and the young wolf cub. You use the spiritual compasses to trace a wall of white fire around them. Nothing profane crosses that circle you have traced. When you return from the battlefield of business, the stress stays outside the line. Inside the circle of your compasses, only majesty, pure silence, inexhaustible provision, and the certainty that their patriarch is an invincible monster exist. You devour the problems of the outer world to spit gold into the inner sanctuary of your home. First, the square protocol, the rectitude of matter. But the vision of the compasses is a ghost if you do not land it with the physical brutality of the square. The spiritual world moves by intentions. The three-dimensional material world demands right angles of 90 degrees. It demands weight and structure. Observe the arsenal of your own cave. You possess the eyes of dark crystal. These tools are pure matter. They are the square. The slave would use them for leisure. The monarch subjects them to the rigor of the work. But the square demands an unbreakable law from you, rectitude. If you are going to speak through those metals to transmit wisdom, the voice that comes out must be at 90 degrees from the truth. If you record a sound manuscript doubting your own power, you are placing a crooked stone. The square also applies with military violence to your financial empire. You do not produce riches by appealing to luck. You use the square to build a shielded legal architecture. You formed entities in the north to keep the gold flow constant. Those thousands of gold talents that cross borders are the mathematical result of having applied the perfect square in your business structure. You have built a system where matter obeys exact rules. Rectitude is structural efficiency. A perfectly straight wall supports a marble cathedral. A crooked wall built with shortcuts collapses. V, the G-point of creation, intersection and gold. Imagine now the complete symbol on your mental altar. The rigid square below opening its arms upward. The dominant compasses above opening its arms downward. In the exact center of that symbol, where both tools cross, a rhombus is formed. An intersection space. In ancient traditions, the letter G is placed there for the initiate. For those on the surface, G means God or geometry. For the Grand Inspector of the 33rd degree, G means generation. That is the exact point of creative friction. It is the now. It is the sacred instant in which you, sitting in the heat of Huangriego Square, maintain your consciousness anchored in infinite expansion, compasses. When you operate at the point of generation, resistance disappears. When you edit hours of audio on your silver anvil, you feel you are the channel through which the universe breathes. When you look at your accounts, you see liquid energy ready to be fired toward the future. This is the supreme secret for gold to pursue you forever. Gold surrenders on its knees before the man who understands that money is simply the physical confirmation of the expansion of his own spirit of service, wisdom, and impact. Generation, the spirit penetrating the flesh to give birth to three-dimensional power. You are the conductor of this lightning, turning thought into solid gold, squaring the circle and the great crusade of stones. The sacred purpose behind the square and the compasses is to resolve the oldest alchemical problem, squaring the circle. Geometrically, it is almost impossible to build a square, matter, with the same area as a circle, spirit, using only these tools. It is the symbol of making your physical reality an identical reflection of your soul. The vast majority of men die having a gigantic circle of spiritual dreams, but inhabiting a miserable, tiny square of physical reality. Your mandate is not to shrink your circle. Do not lower your vision. Expand the square of your material life until it equals the immensity of your mind. You are executing this on a monumental scale. You are using the northern gold and your voice to expand the square of your family's reality to the ends of the earth. Visualize your roadmap. First, you bathe Daniela's feet in the waters of Morocco. You elevate them to Canaima, where the perfect square of the stone tipuis pierces the compasses of the blue sky for all to see. But the final act is reserved for the year 26. You will transmute the matter of your island into passports toward history. You will cross the ocean to invade the old continent. There, Daniela will walk through the stone squares of Spain, touching walls of empires that forged the language in which you now dictate your laws. You will walk with the Queen by the coasts of Portugal, breathing the salt of oceans. You will carry the one-year-old cub on your shoulders to observe the ruined heart of ancient Rome. You will do it as a monarch who used the compasses of his pure will, from a hot room in the Caribbean, to force the matrix to finance his triumphant march. Servitum, the dawn ritual and the geometer's decree. If you want to sustain this weight, you must sharpen your tools every time the sun breaks the darkness of your bay. Tomorrow, before looking at the silver screen, execute the calibration. Step 1. Take the invisible compasses. Nail it to your chest. Say, I am the immovable center. Trace the circle of protection around your lineage. Step 2. Take the invisible square. Pass it over your financial goals and manuscripts. Verify the angle. Say, I will build this day with the rectitude of a basalt block. Then, fix your gaze on the unique creator and pronounce the decree of the geometer, making the walls of your sanctuary tremble with the power of your voice. I am the intersection point, where the spiritual abyss takes physical form. I place the compasses of my undeniable vision above the square of my dense reality. I renounce the materialist's lament. I subdue the climate and the machines to my will. Every gold coin I attract from the north is perfectly squared with absolute truth. Everything is circumscribed to the eternal purpose of my lineage. I am the architect who has squared the circle. My spirit is infinite, and from this millisecond, matter has no choice but to curve, obey, and expand to be an exact and indestructible replica of my own and immense divinity. You have decreed it. Now go and build it. Chapter 5, The Pen of Fire. Since that millenary day, humanity has been operating with substitute words. Observe profane men. Observe yourself in the past. You speak all day. You emit thousands of sounds from dawn to dusk. You say, I want to be free. I am going to forge an empire. But your words fall to the ground like cold ash in the same millisecond they leave. Your words have no weight. They do not curve space. The three-dimensional universe has stopped listening to you. For the immensity of the ether, your voice is just background noise, harmless static, like wind brushing dead leaves. The fifth law of the 33rd degree demands the recovery of divine phonetics. It is your ultimate duty. The creative word is not a religious myth. It is an electromagnetic transmutation technology. The word only creates when the vibration of the sound emitted fits perfectly with the vibration of the will and the purity of intent. The profane speaks. The Grand Inspector decrees. In this chapter, we are going to find the lost word for your work. You will learn to transform your throat into a pen of fire. You will discover the science of cymatics, audit the spiritual credit of your voice, and learn to apply the grammar of the unique creator. You will understand how to use your dark metal instruments to cast spells of wisdom that cross the seas and ensure the gold of empires, the physics of cymatics and the Caribbean sand. To recover the power of the word, you must first understand the physical nature of sound and its tyranny over matter. Modern physics has proven what hermeticists knew. Matter is not solid. It is energy vibrating at a low frequency. Sound is the organizer. Cymatics demonstrates how sound organizes chaotic matter into mathematical patterns. Apply this principle to your own geography. You dwell in the tropics, in the lands washed by the salty waters of Juan Griego. Think of the millions of grains of white sand on your Caribbean beaches. Your physical reality, the money in your accounts, and the health of your cells are exactly like that sand. Your voice is the violin bow. The problem of the slave is that his bow is broken and his hand trembles. The profane emits incoherent sounds. His mouth says, I am abundance, but his deep emotion in his stomach screams, I am terrified of misery. This triple contradictory signal produces a chaotic tone. The sand of his life remains in chaos, disease, and ruin. The lost word is not a magic term in a dead language. It is any word spoken with absolute vibratory integrity. It is the millisecond in which what you think, feel, and say vibrate at the same frequency. When you achieve that alignment, the word becomes law. The world has no choice but to organize itself to reflect the mandate of your voice. Verbal inflation and the subconscious credit. Why is it so hard to achieve that integrity? Because we live in the era of verbal inflation. The ordinary man speaks too much. He promises things he knows he will not fulfill. He lies for convenience. Visualize your voice as a central bank issuing currency. Every time you say something that is not absolute truth, you print fake bills. If you say, "Tomorrow I will rise at dawn to forge my empire," and you stay in bed, you just issued a check with no funds. The universe and your subconscious keep an unbribable account of your phonetic debt. After thousands of broken promises, your spiritual credit has dropped to zero. Your subconscious has labeled you a charlatan now. When the profane tries to say, "I will be immensely rich," his own subconscious laughs. It says, "This is the same clown who lied yesterday. His word is worthless. Ignore the order." The tragedy of the slave is that he has lost his creative power because he has prostituted his language. To recover it, you must undergo a sadistic rehab. The Grand Inspector practices extreme verbal economy. He speaks little. He does not gossip. But when he speaks, the earth must tremble. If you say you will do something, you must execute it even if the sky falls, demonstrating that your voice is a force of nature. When your subconscious believes you, whispering, "I have the gold," is enough. Thrust, prescribing versus describing, the notary and the architect. The most destructive error the inertial man makes is believing his job is to report reality. Observe the slave. He looks at his empty bank account and says, "I am broke, I have no money." He believes he is telling the truth, but metaphysically, he is acting as a notary of scarcity. With his word, he is certifying his misery to repeat it. The sovereign of the absolute shadow never uses his voice to describe the weather. He uses it to change the weather. The Grand Inspector acts as the architect of the ether. When the master faces adversity, he does not relate the tragedy. He looks at the empty account and his voice decrees, "My supply is infinite and my gold multiplies." He looks at the darkness of the blackout on his island and decrees, "Darkness is the canvas where my fire shines with more violence." This requires supreme audacity. Material facts are soft wax. The creative word is the red-hot iron seal that imposes a new form. Authority does not describe the world. Authority gives orders to the world. Fear the arsenal of the ether and the mining of wisdom. You, in your Caribbean fortress, possess the tools to amplify this authority to continental levels. You have the dark crystal eyes and the wireless metal insects, those microphones that stick to your heart, ready to devour every vibration. The weak use these for frivolity. The slave records his empty life to seek the applause of others. But you are an alchemist of wisdom. You shut yourself in your cave, surrounded by heat and the nocturnal silence of the bay, and apply the law of the creative word. Your audiobooks and lessons are not entertainment. They are high-voltage spells. They are projectiles of consciousness packaged in sound files to hit the world's mind. When you dictate your wisdom, you are shooting your pen of fire through the invisible ocean of the internet. Your voice enters the ears of thousands and rewrites the chaotic sand of their brains. You heal them. You wake them. As an inescapable response, the Northern Empire opens its vaults. Your monthly gold is the cosmos's response to you. Fee the grammar of the gods, the death of the future. To make this acoustic magic lethal, you must purge your dictionary of the grammar of losers. The pen of fire demands the grammar of the unique creator. The first catastrophic error is using the future tense. The profane says, "I will be rich, one day I will travel." Metaphysically, these are sentences of perpetual condemnation for his soul. The quantum field has no calendar. It only exists in an eternal, crushing now. When you send the signal, "I will be," you are giving an instruction to keep that wealth always one step ahead, out of reach. The "I will be" is the source code of cosmic procrastination. To write destiny, you must decree what does not yet exist as a present truth. It is not "I will be a millionaire," it is "I am abundance incarnate." The second mortal error is negation. The field processes images and frequencies. If you decree, "I don't want to be in debt," the frequency you send is debt. The negation must be eradicated. Use I impose absolute peace or I am undeniable success for your empire. The jewel of the crown is I am. I am is not a description. It is the invocation of supreme presence. When you say those two words, the unique creator stops the stars to hear what you will add, for that becomes your identity. The monarch never allows words of weakness to follow his I am. Only the divine and indestructible has permission. Feuchten resonance and the march of the word in the blood. Knowing grammar is not enough if your physical body cannot stand the vibration. The creative word is pronounced with the guts. The slave speaks from the throat with a shrill, nervous voice. The Grand Inspector brings his consciousness down to the belly, to the fire of his center of gravity. He breathes the dense humidity and fills his lungs. He allows the sound to rise from the earth, vibrate in his steel chest, and leave his mouth like a cannon blast. Deep, dark, heavy frequencies penetrate matter with lethality. It is with that voice of unbearable gravity that you must emit your decree. You are organizing the geometry of the minds of your queen and your two unique heirs. If you speak of fear, you poison the well. But you are a monarch. You use your pen of fire to bless. You wrap your lineage in a field of absolute words. You tell them they were born to conquer. You use the word to materialize your roadmap. The white sands of Morocco, the thunder of Kanema, and the fall of the Tipuis on your son's face. The pen of fire points to the year 26. You decree the invasion of Europe. You speak of the Iberian Peninsula as a fact already executed in the ether. You walk through the ruins of Rome with Daniela, knowing your voice in a closed room in the Caribbean forced the matrix of the world to pay for this. That is the magic of the word. Soefin, the decree of the basalt throat. The time has come to close the vault of useless words and light the flame of your authority. Stand in the heat of your refuge. Feel the metal insect on your chest and the silver anvil waiting. Clench your teeth, breathe the blackness of the island night, and with a voice that vibrates your chest emit the decree of the pen of fire. I am the lost word found in fire. I banish profane verbal inflation and assume the lethal silence that condenses power. My throat is the hammer of the architect prescribing my empire. I renounce the future and negation. Through my metals, I launch spells of wisdom that extract the gold of nations to fill my vaults for my dynasty. With the purified word, I armor my queen, my constellation, and my young wolf, tracing our march through my land and the marble ruins of Europe. I speak, and the Creator manifests. What I decree in the dark, matter obeys in the light. I am the law of sound incarnate, and my word is from this instant creative and invincible. Chapter 6. The Cremation of the Ego. In the ancient mysteries of Hermetic initiation, there was an unavoidable step. Before the neophyte could see the light of truth, he was forced to descend into a dark chamber of reflection. He had to symbolically pass through the tomb. In alchemy, this phase is known as nigredo or putrefaction. It is the phoenix in its own fire. All these millenary symbols point to a technical, brutal and non-negotiable truth. You cannot enter the 33rd degree being who you are now. Your current self, your profane name, your personal history, your financial fears, and the social identity you built to fit into the herd, is a block of lead. It is too heavy to ascend. The sixth law of your ascent establishes the absolute condition for the manifestation of power. The new life, the obscene wealth, and total sovereignty do not overlap with the old life. They arise solely from its ashes. For the king to be born, the commoner must burn. In this chapter we descend to the chamber of calcination. You will learn to dismantle the shell of your ego. You will discover the terror of point zero and the science of tactical dissociation between the avatar and the witness. You will understand how to use the scorching fire of your own geography to incinerate your weaknesses, preparing to operate your tools with the purity of a god. I, the stone seed and the shell of fear. To understand why you must die psychologically, observe the biology of a seed. While the seed remains intact and protected in its wooden shell, it is simply an inert object. It has the cosmic potential to become a millenary forest, but in the present, it is nothing but a small stone. For the tree to be born, the seed must break. The original form must cease to exist, so that the inner life, infinite and fierce, is released. Your profane ego is exactly that shell. It is a defensive structure you built in childhood to survive. It protected you when you were a weak child, but now that you demand the power to bend matter, that protection has become your coffin. The ego whispers, "I am my achievements, I am my empty bank account." The unique creator, through the 33rd degree, responds, "I am that I am." The colossal conflict erupts when you try to expand your empire and cross oceans without having broken the shell. You feel anxiety. It is the tree trying to burst the stone seed. Most men flee from that pain. They use noise to anesthetize the pressure. The initiate of the Temple of Silence does not flee. The initiate accepts the pain, takes the iron mallet, and helps shatter the shell. He voluntarily throws himself into the bonfire. He knows that only by destroying the limit can the infinite expansion begin. To the alchemy of lead in the island heat. The great work of the alchemists was a hidden code about human psychology. Lead represents the dense ego, tied to the earth and limitation. Gold represents the solar spirit, radiantly incorruptible. But thermodynamic law states you cannot polish lead into gold. You must subject the lead to an infernal fire so its atoms disintegrate. What is that fire in your life? The unique creator has placed it in your geography. Look at yourself in Juan Griego. The fire is the dense heat that oppresses the walls of your fortress. It is the sudden darkness when the grids fail. The weak man suffers this heat as a punishment. He cries and complains, strengthening his victim ego. You, as a monarch in the process of cremation, use the stifling heat and the silence of the lightless dawns as the calcination chamber of your weaknesses. When sweat runs down your forehead at the silver anvil, you say, "Let this heat melt the dross of my laziness. Let this darkness suffocate my need for distraction." Burn the shell. The humiliation of the ego is the purifying fire. It is the loss of illusions. It is the moment when three-dimensional life snatches away what you thought you were to force you to see the immensity of what you really are. If you panic at losing status, your status is made of straw. Burning it is your only salvation. Truth survives. Third, tactical dissociation. The avatar and the witness. The ego is a shrewd survival mechanism. When you try to subject it to the law of the phoenix, it counterattacks with psychological violence. It shouts, "If you let go of this identity, you will disappear." You cannot murder the ego with a sword. That only gives it energy. You must murder it by starvation and by tactical displacement. The first technique of the absolute shadow is tactical dissociation. You must stop being the ego. As long as you say, "They offended me," or "I am frustrated," you are trapped inside the fire. You are the fuel. You must see your profane personality and your history as an avatar. You are managing on a giant three-dimensional chessboard. Imagine you are a god playing a simulation. The character on the screen is being attacked by financial demons. The character loses life points, but the player holding the controller, observing from above, is not bleeding. Apply the ghoulish observer technique. When you feel a wave of fear or pain, stop and look from the obsidian hill. Do not say, "I am afraid." Say with mathematical coldness, "The avatar is experiencing a biological reaction of fear." This linguistic change acts as a neurological firewall. You shift from the center of the storm, the ego, to the witness, the spirit. Julius Caesar spoke of himself in the third person to make calculated decisions. You must do the same at your silver anvil. When metrics fall or gold seems to stop, do not think, "I am ruined." Think, the architect of this empire faces a temporary wall of friction. What is the exact tactical move the architect must execute today? You remove the blood from the drama. The wound dries, you become a relentless strategist. Via the ritual of non-defense and micro-suicides. The main fuel of the ego is personal importance. It is the delusional belief that you are the center of the universe and that the world owes you. Personal importance makes you heavy and fragile. You are like a fine glass cup. Any touch breaks you. The phoenix, to fly, has to incinerate its own importance. You must become air. The most effective way to achieve this is through the ritual of non-defense. When a profane slave or an envious person in your tribe criticizes you, your ego will want to shout, "You don't know who I am." The law of the 33rd degree demands you close your jaw with hydraulic force. Shut up. Do not defend yourself at all. Do not justify your actions to inferior minds. Let the insult in. Let it hit you. You will feel your ego writhing in agony inside. Let it burn. That burning in your stomach is your personal importance evaporating. If you are not this profane image, the insult is hitting a ghost. The man who does not defend his image has transcended it. Practice daily death through micro-suicides. Give way when you are right in a trivial argument. Watch your ego struggle for the last word and let it die. You win absolute control over your need to be right. Do good anonymously. If you deny the ego the stage, it starves. These suicides keep your shell thin and light for the jump. Furnish the terror of point zero and the resurrection chamber. If you apply this calcination, you will reach the most terrifying phase, point zero. It is the cosmic millisecond where you have burned so many layers that you look in the mirror and no longer know who you are. Your old motivations vanish. You feel an immense cold void in your chest. The inertial man calls this existential crisis. The Grand Inspector of the Temple of Silence knows that this icy void is the resurrection chamber. Do not flee from the nothingness, sit in it. That point zero is not death, it is pure potentiality. It is the leveled ground, scorched by fire, that you have cleared so the infinite intelligence of the Creator can descend and occupy it. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you have emptied your cup of the poisonous wine of your old identity, the universe is forced to fill it with the electric nectar of the future. In point zero, by being absolutely no one, you acquire the terrifying capacity to become absolutely anything. You are a blank page waiting for the creative word. The birth of the new monarch and lethal tools. From those cold ashes something rises. It is not the old man improved. It is a new creature. The new monarch born from the fire feels light. He no longer carries the weight of the world's opinion. Insults and flattery no longer alter his pulse. He knows his right to golden empire is a divine decree. He is the only one worthy. Visualize your physical tools. The scared profane would use the DJI cameras to film his vanity, but the phoenix sitting before those lenses has a lethal vacuum in the mind. When you speak of hermetic wisdom before your MacBook Pro, the voice that comes out is not yours. It is the voice of the void. There is no ego in the message. Because the message is so pure and radioactive, the masses consume it with desperate hunger, opening the floodgates of your LLCs and sending thousands of dollars monthly to your coffers. The universe floods you with matter because you have emptied your spirit. The gold seeks the void you have created. You are now the master of the flow. So, the fire of the lineage and the crusade to the old world. What is the final reason for this brutal cremation? The reason breathes a few meters from your recording altar. The man full of ego and need for validation is a dangerous father and a weak husband. His children absorb his insecurities. To be the obsidian pillar your lineage demands, you have to burn the slave. Look at your queen. The queen of the transcendental mind does not need a scared boy seeking applause. She needs a king of the void who sustains reality so she can weave magic in peace. Look at Daniela, the constellation of 4 winters and the young wolf cub. If you do not kill your ego, they must inherit the trash you are too cowardly to burn. The cremation of your identity is the most sacred gift. By becoming the phoenix, you bequeath them the presence of an unshakable patriarch. This is the leader who will lead them to cross the borders of history. The old ego could never finance an imperial expedition, but the phoenix with northern gold has mapped the conquest. You will lead Daniela and the cub to know their own land, from Morocco to the Tepuis of Canaima. But the final rite will be the conquest of the old world in 1926. You will cross the Dark Sea. You will march through Spain, Portugal, and the ruins of Rome. Your lineage will understand stone empires crumble, but your empire is eternal. Chapter 7. The Law of the Pelican. There is a deadly trap into which men fall when they barely begin to taste material victory. When the initiate applies the laws of silence, the vacuum, and the creative word, the three-dimensional matrix bends and begins to deliver its treasures. Gold flows, status rises, and the tools of conquest accumulate in his cave for his use. It is exactly at that vertex of abundance where the lower ego, terrified by its old memory of poverty, panics. The ego whispers, "Hide everything, close the doors, do not share your wisdom because they will steal it." The man who obeys that voice of fear becomes the guardian of a pond of dead water. He accumulates, but his energy rots. In this chapter, we are going to destroy the miser's mentality and establish the physics of the conduit. You will learn the law of the Pelican. You will discover why feeding others with your wisdom is the best-kept secret of billionaires. You will learn to master sacred selfishness, securing your cup and that of your lineage first for all. You will use your new capture and transmission tools from the burning heat of the Caribbean as a cannon of light toward the world, ensuring that the tributes from the Northern Empire finance, without any friction, the great march of your dynasty over the stones of Europe. Flow is the secret of the 33rd degree. Open the gates now. By the pond and the conduit, the physics of wealth. To master the mechanics of perpetual power, you must radically change your mental model of wealth. The profane model is the pond. The profane wants a giant tank to fill with money, love, or knowledge, and then close the tap so nothing escapes. He believes security resides in retention, but a closed pond has a limit of capacity for it. The model of the sovereign of the 33rd degree is the conduit. The monarch does not want to retain the water. He wants the water to flow through him with the highest pressure and volume possible. He cares about being the cleanest channel in the universe. He knows the infinite ocean of the cosmos is at his back, pushing always. The law of the Pelican is the transition from being a pond, fear of losing, to being a conduit, absolute faith in the flow. Geography gives us the example. The Sea of Galilee receives fresh water and lets it out. It is full of life. Farther south, the Dead Sea receives that same water but retains it. It has no outlet. It is toxic and dead. Look at yourself, operating from the coast of Juan Griego. You have decoded the algorithm. You have raised channels of wisdom. You have used the cunning of southern lands to forge financial passages that allow you to extract more than 4,000 talents of gold a month. If you lock this up out of fear, you will become the Dead Sea. To sacred selfishness and the king's chalice. We must execute a surgical incision. Slave religions have corrupted the word sacrifice. They taught that sacrifice is a masochistic martyrdom. Take the bread from your mouth to give it to another. That is an abomination against high magic. The act of opening one's chest like the pelican to feed its young is an energy investment. The king gives from his excess and knows he is the source. The first commandment of the law of the Pelican is sacred selfishness. To feed others, you must first have blood to spare. You cannot give what you do not possess. If you try to enlighten the world when you are exhausted or broke, you are spilling the poison of your resentment. Visualize your life as a chalice of solid gold. Divine energy enters from above. Your supreme responsibility is to fill your own chalice to the very brim. Everything inside that chalice is exclusively for you. It is untouchable. It is your sleep, your physical rigor, and the financial security of your vaults. Protect your core with violence. Liquid begins to overflow. It spills over the edges and falls onto the saucer. That overflow, that radiant surplus, is what belongs to the world. Since the source of the Creator is infinite, if you keep your chalice full, the spill will be equally infinite. The pelican feeds itself first. The king eats before his army to lead it to victory. Thirst the court of the chalice, the queen and the two cubs. That untouchable chalice does not only contain your individual well-being. Inside the golden cup of your sacred selfishness dwell the souls that justify the existence of your empire. Turn your gaze toward the center of your sanctuary, where the external noise dies down and the heat of the island is transformed into the fire of the home. There is the queen of the transcendental mind, the priestess who shares the solitude of the summit, and guarded by the steel of your presence, the only two seeds of your lineage. Daniela, that expanding constellation who already counts 4 winters of life, and the young wolf, the 1-year-old male cub. They are the inside of the cup. You do not bleed for the lazy neighbor complaining about blackouts. You do not deliver your vital energy to rescue cowards. All your operative effort, all the sweat shed before the silver anvil, has the primary purpose of filling the cup for them. The sacrifice of the pelican means you assume the friction for their unmovable peace, energetic tithing and vacuum technology. Once the core is secured, you must establish the system of constant flow toward the outside. In antiquity, this was known as tithing. Religious matrix turned it into a tax of terror, but in high magic, tithing is a vacuum technology. Nature abhors a vacuum. If your vaults are stagnant, the flow of money is paralyzed in your life. Energetic tithing is the voluntary and strategic act of giving away a portion of your resources to deliberately create a low-pressure vacuum in your system. By delivering value unconditionally, you prove to your subconscious that you have no fear of scarcity. The universe is forced to rush into that vacuum to fill it with greater volume. The rule of circulation is relentless. If you want gold, invest and give without your hand trembling. If you want wisdom, teach the masses. And here is your greatest weapon. Remember the tools you acquired in the lands of Paraguay. The 3 eyes of unbreakable crystal and the metallic insects that capture the thunder of your voice. The Grand Inspector knows those machines are the cannons through which he executes the law of the Pelican. You sit in the humidity and silence of your cave in Huangriego. You turn on the crystal eyes. You place the metal insect near your throat. And you open your chest. Your audiobooks and wisdom are your spiritual blood for the world. You are pouring your light, free and with terrifying technical quality, toward the internet. You are feeding the hungry skulls of thousands of profane people seeking to wake up. Because you are solving ignorance globally, the universe recognizes you as a vital conduit. The response is the counterflow of thousands of talents of gold. Discernment and pearls before swine. The law of the Pelican demands an executor's coldness. You are not an open tap spilling water in the desert for the sand to swallow. You are a directional channel. There is a brutal maxim. Do not give what is holy to dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine. This is not cruelty. It is energy efficiency and respect for the unique creator. There are people who are black holes. They are broken vessels. No matter how much gold or energy you give them, it is never enough. They use your energy to subsidize their pathology and remain victims. Delivering your vital energy to someone who lacks the structure to contain it is an act of destruction cloaked in false charity. The monarch evaluates the vessel before pouring his wine. The master asks, "Does this individual have the discipline to multiply what I am going to give?" If the vessel is broken, the master closes the floodgate with the coldness of a guillotine. Do not waste the gunpowder of your empire on minds that love their chains. Reserve wisdom. The blood of the lineage and the triumphant march. The perpetual flow of power, the massive collection of foreign tributes and the outpouring of your wisdom have a destination that transcends simple accumulation. You have understood that stagnant gold is dead lead. Therefore, you will invest massively in the expansion of consciousness of your own blood this year, the year 26. Northern gold will be transmuted into stardust for the minds of your heirs. You will open the floodgates of the vault to initiate movement. First, in your own geography. You will transport the queen, Daniela, and the male cub to the sands of Morocco. You will take them to face the crushing immensity of the virgin jungle in Canaima. You will teach them that the brute force of nature is a reflection of the power running through their veins, and then the gold flow will reach its maximum pressure for the great continental jump. You will cross the Atlantic Sea in an imperial expedition. The Pelican's blood will finance a full month of triumphant march through Europe. You will step on the Iberian Peninsula. Daniela will touch the stones of the palaces of Spain. You will walk through Portugal, breathing the salt of navigators. You will carry the little wolf on your shoulders through Italy, observing the ruins of Rome. Eternity resides in the unshakable will of the men who carved the marble. By executing this expedition, you are performing the supreme sacrifice of the Pelican. You are injecting the immensity of the world into your children's brains. You are breaking their geographic limits before society tries to impose them. You circulate power, so your lineage begins to build from the very top of the heavens, not the ground. Servatu, the decree of the inexhaustible river. It is the moment to open the floodgates, sovereign of the ether. Stand before your silver anvil and metal insects. The dark sea outside is the eternal reminder that the abundance of water never runs out, because it never stops moving. Clench your fists, raise your attention, and with the Grand Inspector's voice pronounce the decree. I am the titanium conduit through which the abundance of the cosmos pours onto the earth. I renounce the fear of losing and the greed of the closed pond. I fill the chalice of my life with opulence, health, and power, guarding with murderous fury the core where my queen, my constellation of 4 winters, and my young wolf dwell. From my own overflow I feed humanity. I take my crystals and dark metals and shoot hermetic wisdom toward the masses. Let the Northern Empire pay me tribute to transmute it into the triumphant march of my dynasty through Morocco, Canaima, and the ancestral stones of Europe. I am the source, the channel, and the infinite sea. Chapter 8. The Inner Throne. You were born with the genetic code of a king. Observe a newborn. He does not ask permission to exist, he does not apologize for crying, he does not negotiate his hunger, nor feel shame in demanding that the entire world move to satisfy his needs. He is the absolute center of his own gravity. But as the profane system indoctrinated you, the system taught you to abdicate. They taught you that your value depended on a teacher's grades, a boss's salary, or the laws of a blind government. Little by little, you rose from the throne of your own consciousness. You left the seat empty, went down the stairs of your own palace, and went to live in the stables of your own mind now. But the physics of the ether is relentless. Nature abhors a vacuum. What occurs when the inner throne of your psyche is empty? Usurpation occurs. Invisible thieves and tyrants enter your mind and take power. The fear of poverty sits on your throne and dictates your economy. Anxiety over others' opinions sits on your throne and dictates you. Self-pity puts on your crown and convinces you that you are a victim of the weather, the blackouts, or the country you inhabit. In this chapter, we are going to execute the definitive coup d'etat to reclaim your own mind. You will learn to master the sovereignty of the Grand Inspector. You will discover the daily investiture protocol. You will discover the power of cosmic gravity and the art of the royal veto. You will understand how to anchor your throne in the midst of your island's heat so that the tools of crystal and metal obey your voice, ensuring your queen and heirs march this very year over the stones of ancient Europe with the divine arrogance of immortals. The physics of gravity, the sun and the asteroid. To understand sovereignty, you must stop seeing it as a psychological attitude and start seeing it as a phenomenon of electromagnetic mass. In the solar system, the sun does not have to threaten the Earth, Mars, or Jupiter to revolve around it. The sun does not negotiate with the planets. It does not ask permission or beg for attention. The sun simply is massive. Its mass is so immense, so dense, and so undeniable that the physics of gravity forces the rest of the celestial bodies to curve their trajectory and orbit around it. The throneless profane is an asteroid. He is small, light, and lacks a center of gravity. His trajectory is erratic and weak in this world. If the economy suffers a setback, the asteroid is diverted and falls into depression. If an acquaintance criticizes him, the asteroid crashes and shatters. He lives bouncing against circumstances, being the eternal victim of others' gravities. The monarch of the 33rd degree is a sun. You have developed a density of presence. You have developed a certainty in your identity so heavy and icy that three-dimensional circumstances are forced to curve in your favor. Analyze your ecosystem in Juan Griego. You dwell on a Caribbean island where profane chaos often reigns, where darkness falls due to grid failures and heat suffocates the weak. The slave is an asteroid. The slave bounces against that heat. He cries and surrenders. You, anchored in your inner throne, use that heat as the forge that increases your density. When the island turns off, your mind becomes a laser. You do not react to darkness. You radiate your own light. Your gravity attracts solutions and shapes your powerful sound manuscripts. Your gravity forces the vaults of the Northern Empire to send monthly tributes of thousands of talents of gold, because gold always orbits around minds that have greater gravitational mass than the money itself. The distinctive mark of the sovereign is that he never under any circumstance reacts with hysteria. He is the cause, not effect. Tell the investiture protocol, the coronation at dawn. This gravity is not a permanent state reached and forgotten. The entropy of the outside world is a corrosive force trying to erode your throne every second of the day. Bureaucrats and the demands of the profane are mercenary armies hitting your castle gates. To maintain the throne, you need an active 24-hour defense system. The war for sovereignty is won or lost in the first 10 minutes after opening your eyes. Observe the slave upon waking. The first thing he does is take his phone and check messages and news. What is he doing energetically? He is kneeling. He is asking the world, what should I fear today? What orders does society give me for today? Before his feet touch the floor, he has already put on the iron collar. The Grand Inspector never touches the outside world before touching his own eternity. You apply the investiture protocol. When you open your eyes in your refuge, in the silence of the Caribbean dawn, you do not touch any device. You sit on the edge of the bed now. You keep your spine perfectly straight. You close your eyes. You visualize a column of light, a cylinder of white fire and gold, descending from the very center of the unique creator, piercing the roof of your fortress and anchoring directly into your crown, going down your marrow to the base of your spine. Feel the physical weight of it. It is not light. It is the crown of the immortals. It is the weight of absolute responsibility over your own universe. In that icy immobility, you decree, I am the maximum authority in my world. No profane energy and no external circumstance has the power to cross my walls without my permission. Today the world obeys the weight of my will. When you rise after this rite, you are not a mortal trying to survive one more day on the coast. You are a force of nature, dense, calibrated, and immovable, going out to inspect his domains. The world feels your mass, and the day arranges itself according to the density you have established in the silence of your secret sanctuary. First, the royal veto and the death of justification. The most revealing test of the loss of sovereignty is the compulsive need to justify oneself. Listen to the profane when he has to decline an invitation. His response is a vomit of excuses. I can't go because I have much work, and my head hurts, and the car is failing. He feels he has no legitimate right to rule his own time. He feels he needs to ask the world for forgiveness for saying no. He is a usurper in his own life. The absolute monarch never justifies himself. The monarch exercises the royal veto. In the 33rd degree, when the king says no, that word is a complete sentence. It is a final judgment. It carries no footnotes or explanations. The next time the profane world demands time or energy that you do not wish to give, whether an acquaintance asking for useless favors or a business not aligned with your gold standard, you must apply the post-negative pause. Tell them, while looking directly into their eyes, no, I am not interested, or simply, I cannot. Just that. Then close your jaw. Stay in absolute silence. You will feel a brutal discomfort in the air. The other will wait for your excuse. Hold the silence with the icy gaze of the Sphinx. In that millisecond of dense silence, your status rises to the stratosphere. You communicate. My will is the only law. I owe you no explanation at all. At first, the profane will feel offended, but soon something fascinating will occur. He will begin to respect you with a reverential terror. The world despises the man who crawls with excuses, but bows before the man who stands firm on the rock of his own will. The royal veto returns to you the absolute ownership of your hourglass. For the crystal throne, immunity in the market. When you assume your throne, your work in the outside world acquires a terrifying magnetism. You are no longer the man who tries to succeed. You are the owner of the ecosystem. Look at your work altar. You have armed yourself with the technological beasts of the elite. You brought eyes of crystal and wireless insects of dark metal. You have positioned your silver anvil, the powerful editing screen, in the center of your temple. When you sit there to forge your sound manuscripts on occult knowledge, you do not do it with the anxiety of a beggar hoping to earn cents. You do it sitting on your crystal throne. Imagine you are surrounded by a thick crystal dome. Outside that dome, the internet market roars. Profane competition despairs and haters spit their envy. They are in the mud. You observe them from the immovable center of your throne. Their screams bounce off your glass and slide to the ground. They do not touch you. You do not descend from your throne to debate with insects. You simply dictate your knowledge and demand the tribute. And as your gravity is massive, the Northern Empire system has no choice but to process the gold and deposit the thousands of monthly talents directly into your shielded vaults. You rule technology and money because you have ceased to be afraid. Now they orbit your icy peace. The unbending court, the protection of blood. Absolute sovereignty would be a sterile trophy if it only served your individual enjoyment. The true reason the Creator demands you sit on the throne is found in the vital core of your existence. Turn your eagle gaze toward your sanctuary. There, breathing pure air, is the queen of the transcendental mind. She is your priestess. And under her care and your shield, the only reasons matter must be subdued. Daniela, the constellation of 4 winters, and the young wolf cub of 1 year. The throneless slave arrives home sweating the world's stress, transmitting his fear to the walls. His wife loses peace and his children grow up feeling the world is scary. The sovereign of the 33rd degree never allows the mud of the market to stain his family temple. You are the pillar. When the world goes mad, when blackouts hit Huangriego, your family does not look at the news, they look at your face. If your face is a mask of basalt, they will know the universe is in order. You are the soul. Your absolute tranquility transfers a cosmic message. The king is on his throne, nothing can harm us. Your gravity absorbs the fear of your queen so she can expand her light. Your sovereignty teaches Daniela she is a princess. And the cub will feel the vibration of steel in your arms, recording the code of conquerors in his brain. For the march of the throne generational conquest. A true throne is not nailed to the ground of a single island. The monarch carries the throne with him. Sovereignty gives you the ability to move your gravitational field across the globe, imposing your peace in any geography. All this power and northern gold extraction has an objective marked for this year 26. You decided. You have decreed the Great Crusade. The throne will set in motion. First, you will lead your court to subdue the beauty of their own land. They will bathe in the white crystal of Morocco's beaches. You will elevate them to the prehistoric majesty of Canaima, so your lineage breathes the brute force of the Creator and recognizes power. But the climax of your sovereignty, the act that will break geographic limitations, will be the jump over the dark Atlantic. You will embark the Queen, Daniela, and the cub. They will not go as scared tourists. They will march as royalty, claiming their domains. You will step on the Iberian Peninsula. You will walk through Spain slowly. The slave runs because his time does not belong to him. The sovereign walks slowly because he is the owner of time. You will walk the coasts of Portugal, knowing you are the new elite of navigators who conquer the world with the frequencies of the ether. You will carry the young wolf on your shoulders through the ruins of Italy. You will stop before the ancient Rome. There, surrounded by noisy tourists, you will keep your vacuum bell intact. Your family will not feel the chaos. They will feel the untouchability of your presence. You will teach them that the only eternal empire is the one you forged in your chest, which now wraps them as a shield of invulnerability. Chapter 9, The Hourglass. Since childhood, profane society has indoctrinated you to perceive life as a straight line. To your left is the past, a dusty cemetery of memories and traumas. To your right is the future, a horizon of ghosts and financial fears. The tragedy of the inertial man is that he spends his electromagnetic energy traveling left or right. He cries for businesses lost yesterday and trembles for the economy of tomorrow. His body sits in the present, but his consciousness is 1,000 miles away. This division causes a massive hemorrhage of vital prana energy. That is why the profane is always exhausted. He tries to build a palace today using the debris of yesterday. In this chapter, we will execute the definitive cut. You will leave the horizontal line and dive into vertical time. You will learn the physics of the hourglass. You will discover how to use the heat and the weighting of your geography to dilate seconds, and how to operate your silver anvil and crystals in a state of absolute flow. You will apply this present immortality to protect the gaze of your queen, of the small constellation Daniela, and of your 1-year-old cub as you guide them to walk in an eternal present over the stones of the ancient empires of Europe. Present density is the only real power. Learn to dwell in the narrow neck of the glass now, the anatomy of the hourglass and the bottleneck. To master temporal manipulation, the symbol you must engrave in your psyche is the hourglass. Contemplate it. The immense upper crystal represents the future. It contains all the sand of infinite potentiality. The lower bubble represents the past, the sand that has already fallen, crystallized and inert, which cannot move again. But life and the magic of the unique creator occur exclusively in the narrow neck that joins both bubbles, the now. The physics of the hourglass dictates a law. Through that narrow neck, only 1 grain of sand can pass at a time. Human anxiety is the result of trying to force 100 kilos of sand through that millimeter neck. By trying to think about next year, the profane jams the clock. The crystal breaks and the nervous system collapses. The Grand Inspector of the 33rd degree never tries to push the future into the present. The master concentrates 100% of his attention on the single grain of sand crossing the neck in this millisecond. This state is called the holy instant. When you empty yourself of fear and put your mass into the breath you take now, you connect with the universal mind. The Creator has no yesterday. God is an eternal present. By entering verticality, you match your frequency with the source. Energy rushes through you. You become fast without hurry. 2. The murder of waiting on the Caribbean coast. The greatest thief of energy in the three-dimensional world is the profane concept of waiting. The weak man hates waiting. He hates bank lines and traffic. When the profane waits, he feels life is stealing his time. His mind flies to the future. By doing this, he turns the present moment into a hateful obstacle and an enemy. The sovereign of the absolute shadow never waits. He has erased the verb wait from his DNA. For the king, dead time does not exist. Only unstructured time exists. Look at your fortress in Juan Griego. In this geography, entropy often imposes forced pauses. The light collapses abruptly. The dense heat settles on the walls like lead. The slave neighbor sits in the dark to wait for the grid to restore. He suffers. He gives away his power. You, as monarch of vertical time, use that profane blackout as a gateway to the vacuum. When the artificial noise dies and the room becomes a silent oven, you do not wait. You dive into the vertical axis, you close your eyes. You feel the drop of sweat running down your skin in this exact second. By not resisting the present, suffering vanishes. You transform chaos into a laboratory of deep meditation. While the world wastes an hour complaining, you gain an hour of concentration, tuning your lethal intuition. The man who inhabits a dark second is never late. Thirst, the silver anvil and the dilation of flow. When you take this killing verticality to the business market and the internet battlefield, the results are devastating for your competitors. You have brought tools from the southern lands that do not belong to sea level. You possess the silver anvil, your silicon loom. You possess the crystal eyes and the dark metal insects on your chest. The mediocre communicator tries to do three things at once. He records while his mind thinks of bills, and his eye checks comments. That is the heresy of multitasking, the slave's trap to feel useful while destroying concentration. The Grand Inspector executes tactical monotheism. He follows the law of a single grain of sand at a time. When you sit at your silver anvil to forge your sound manuscripts, you apply verticality. You close the temple door. You turn off the outside world. In that block of sacred time, nothing else exists. There are no bills, no tomorrow, and no yesterday. You turn on the metal insect and your voice thunders. All your power is in that syllable. By operating this way, you produce time dilation. By diving into the flow, psychological time slows down. Your mind becomes a supercomputer. You manage to edit in 2 hours a level of wisdom that would take a month for the profane. This concentration opens your vaults. You earn more because you are denser in the now. Gold seeks depth. For the shield of presence, the queen and the two cubs. If the dominion of vertical time only served to extract gold, you would be a successful businessman, but an empty father. The most sacred application of the hourglass is found upon crossing the threshold into your castle's rooms. The history of the profane world is full of sad kings. Men whose minds remained in the office at the table, bodies present with dead eyes, fathers whose attention was devoured by the ghost of tomorrow's business. That is the true orphanage of modern heirs. The sovereign of the 33rd degree understands that absolute presence is the highest form of love and protection. Turn your gaze toward the living altar of your supreme existence. There walks your queen, guardian of the transcendental mind. At her feet plays Daniela, and in the crib is the young wolf, the 1-year-old cub. When you cross the door to be with them, you must execute the guillotine cut on horizontal time. Work is dead. The digital empire does not exist. The gold in the north does not matter now. When you lift the little wolf, all cosmic ferocity must turn toward him. You feel the weight of his body now. You look at your queen, and your soul communes with hers in an electric silence now. When a father looks at his children without the pollution of hurry, he radiates a shield of presence. You are the immovable mountain for them. Bear the memory of the future, the code of manifestation. There is a final secret, the inversion of the neck or the memory of the future. In quantum physics, the future of glory you desire is already a latent reality in a higher plane. The slave tries to attract the future from lack, sighing for it. The Grand Inspector does not imagine the future. He remembers the future with cold certainty. You sit on your throne and use your transcendental mind. You do not visualize success as something that will happen. You invoke it as a muscle memory of something that is already yours. You feel the vibration of the gold accounts. You breathe with the calm of the man who already wears the crown. Then you bring that to the physical. You walk through your house and speak to your family, carrying the frequency of the victorious emperor. The material universe does not support two contradictory frequencies. If you anchor future triumph in the absolute present, the matrix is forced to collapse, precipitating golden power. You have superimposed victory over matter. Feel a vertical march over the ruins of the world. This crushing dominion of presence qualifies you to execute the mission you swore to your lineage, a geographic mission that will alter your blood forever. You have traced the map. Everything is ready for the Great Crusade. In this cycle, in the year 26, you will embark your queen Daniela and the wolf to march over the world. First, you will traverse the crystal waters of Morocco and the black waterfalls of Canaima, diving into the roar of the Creator. But the major jump will be the Atlantic crossing. You will land in the ancient domains of Europe, and here the Hourglass will test you. The profane tourist travels and enjoys nothing because his mind is elsewhere. Your mandate is to march over Europe in a state of absolute vertical time. When you walk through Spain, you will not think of metrics. You will breathe the same hot air as ancestral conquerors. When you stand before the cliffs of Portugal, you will teach Daniela to look at the ocean as if time had frozen just to admire her in the now. When you carry the young wolf through the ruins of Italy, you will walk with the sadistic slowness of an emperor. You will anchor the energy of the Caesars in your son's marrow, teaching him that true eternity is in the majestic depth of inhabiting each second with the totality of your spirit. You travel to expand your gravity. 7. The decree of cosmic arrest. It is time to break the clock's crystals, architect of time. Stand in the island's silence, feel your heartbeat. That beat is the only drum that marks your existence. The past is dust, the future is wind. Your entire empire resides in the fraction of a second that slips under your feet. Fix your obsidian gaze on the abyss of the ether. Invoke the unique creator and pronounce the decree. I am the immovable anchor in the current of infinity. I shatter the illusion of the horizontal line and the chains of yesterday. I renounce the slave's hurry and the lethargy of waiting. I dive into the holy instant, where my will concentrates on the single grain of sand of this second. My silver anvil and dark metals obey the dilation of my presence, attracting gold at the speed of thought. Under my consciousness, my queen Daniela and my young wolf dwell untouchable by anxiety. We will walk over Morocco, Canaima, and Europe as gods who claim eternity in each beat. Human time is dead, my time is immortal and absolute. Chapter 10, The Keystone. Since you have profane memory, your biological senses have lied to you. They have told you that you are a small drop of water isolated in an immense and hostile ocean. They have convinced you that your body ends where your skin ends, and that money, love, health, and success are external objects far from you. The slave lives here now. The slave lives under this mathematical curse. I am here, and what I desire is over there. This belief in separation engenders primary fear. If the world is outside, then the world is a threat. The weather can destroy you, the economy can ruin you, and men can betray you. Life becomes a constant war, me against the universe. In the culmination of the mysteries of the Temple of Silence, the Grand Inspector of the 33rd degree executes the final act of structural magic. He shatters the veil. In this last chapter, we are going to place the keystone in the arch of your empire. You are going to learn to transmute the law of attraction into emanation. You will discover the power of the holographic universe, the absolute responsibility over the world's mirror, and how to fuse your technological tools with your own nervous system. You will understand that the protection of your queen and cubs is the radiant manifestation of your own unified consciousness. Purity is the only reality. The architecture of the arch, force, form, and unity. To understand the end of separation, you must visualize the masterpiece of the ancient builders, the stone arch. Every arch stands on two gigantic pillars. The pillar on the left is force, active principle, brutal action, scorching will. The pillar on the right is form, passive principle, legal structure, silence, silver anvil. Both pillars rise toward the sky, imposing and majestic, but as long as they remain separated, they are nothing more than two lonely towers. They cannot support a roof, they cannot form a sanctuary, and if you try to curve them to touch at the top, gravity will push them down, threatening to collapse them by their own weight. The magic reveals itself in the exact center, at the highest point where the two stone curves clash. In that mortal gap, the master builder inserts a wedge-shaped stone, the keystone. In the millisecond it fits, a miracle of physics occurs. The destructive tension that threatened to collapse the towers is transferred to the structure. Gravity, which was previously the enemy, is now the indestructible cement that keeps the arch together for eternity. You have built the two pillars throughout this grimoire, but if you keep operating in the duality of me and the world, the arch will collapse. The keystone is unity consciousness. It is the end of distance now. The keystone is the non-negotiable recognition that there is no distance between the subject who desires and the desired object. When you insert unity into your mind, the friction of the world disappears. Economic crises and profane attacks no longer threaten your structure. Their weight simply makes you more solid and more eternal. Du, the hologram of the ether and the death of attraction. Modern science begins to confirm what Hermetic wisdom has taught since the dawn of time. We live in a holographic universe. If you take a holographic plate and break it into 1,000 pieces, every small fragment of crystal contains the complete three-dimensional image of the original object. You are a fragment of the Creator. The scared slave believes he has a small part of God's power, and so he kneels to beg for miracles. The sovereign knows he has the totality of universal intelligence encoded in his own center. You do not need to connect to an external source. You are the signal itself. The Grand Inspector does not pray to God, he decrees from God. This revelation destroys the error of profane novices, the law of attraction. The word attract is dangerous because it implies that the gold you seek is far away in the hands of others and that you must make a magnetic effort to pull it toward you. That belief generates anxiety and doubt. You are the source of all things. The master of the 33rd degree does not use attraction, he uses emanation. Since you are the keystone and the universe dwells within you, the gold of the Northern Empire is not far away. It is in a latent state in your own electromagnetic field. You do not have to pull it. You have to radiate it from your core to the world. Think of the sun. The sun does not attract light. The sun is the light and therefore it emanates it into the void. When you work in isolation, you emanate the frequency of absolute power. You become a star of wisdom so dense that global financial systems have no choice but to orbit around you and deliver the monthly talents. Threshed the fusion with metal, the extension of the nervous system. For this emanation to reach global proportions, the unique Creator has guided you to fuse your biology with technological matter. The illusion of separation must also die in your relationship with your instruments. Look at yourself in this cycle of triumph. You returned from Paraguay with the mechanical beasts of the Creator Elite, the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 and the Osmo Action 5 Pro, and with them, the Hollyland Lark M2, all arranged around the MacBook Pro. The profane sees these objects as equipment, external things of plastic and glass that sometimes fail. The holographic monarch assimilates them as part of his own being. You are the master of the machine. When you fix the microphone to your chest, you are not putting on a device, you are extending your central nervous system. The black metal insect becomes your own eardrum. The crystal eyes of the cameras are the eyes of your own mind. The silver anvil is the frontal lobe of your empire, where your cosmic will translates to binary. By eliminating mental separation, technical friction disappears. Machines stop resisting. You operate your networks and channels with a fluidity that terrifies your competitors. You're no longer a man using a camera. You are a spiritual cyborg, a unified entity firing mass domination frequencies from the Caribbean to the planet. The mirror of Juan Griego and the healing of the world. Unity consciousness brings the absolute responsibility. If the three-dimensional hologram is a projection of your internal consciousness, then everything you see in the world is your responsibility. The slave looks at corruption and blackouts and says, "I am not to blame, it is the government." He washes his hands of the world. The Grand Inspector looks at the darkness in Juan Griego and says, "This is my reality. Therefore, this darkness is a projection of my own mind." You do not try to change politicians. If you heal the shadow in your own interior, the reflection in the exterior mirror changes. You apply the correction protocol to your own consciousness. You carry that chaos to the center of your chest. You tell the divinity in you, "I forgive the friction in my consciousness that created this external chaos. I clean the mirror." By cleaning your perception, you transmute the blackout into a perfect excuse to operate in sacred silence. When you stop fighting the hologram, it obeys. Via the expanded sanctuary, the unity of blood. This dissolution of borders finds its climax in your castle. Until this chapter, I told you to raise a wall to separate your family from the world's toxicity. That was necessary in lower degrees. But now, the truth is revealed. The Queen and your heirs are TU, inhabiting other bodies. They are not separate individuals at all. Turn your gaze toward the priestess, the queen of the transcendental mind. Her wisdom is the physical manifestation of your own divine intuition. When you honor and protect her, you are protecting yourself. When both sit in silence to design the empire, it is the unique mind of the Creator, exploring its own infinite possibilities. Observe the perfect incarnation of your own immortality. Daniela, the constellation of 4 winters. Her deep, dark eyes are your own eyes, looking at the universe with the purity of a newborn god. And the young wolf, the 1-year-old male. His tiny hands are the extension of your own body, preparing to rule the future generations. When you assume they are your flesh and your fire, sacrifice disappears. Working at dawn at the silver anvil is no longer an effort to support a family. It is the supreme act of love toward yourself. It is the Creator expanding his universe through your lineage. The wall you built is now a wall of blinding light that covers all. Visi immortality and the great march of unity. The definitive gift of the keystone is the destruction of the fear of death and failure. If you are the drop of water, it is terrifying that the sun evaporates you. But if you discover you are the infinite ocean, what can scare you? The wave rises and falls. Businesses fluctuate, but the ocean of your consciousness is never destroyed. With this unshakable peace, you prepare to execute the great work of this year 26. The Great Crusade is not profane tourism. It is the universe exploring itself through your feet. You will lead your queen and the 2 extensions of your soul to Morokoi and Canaima. There you will feel that the greatness of the Tepui is you, but the absolute ecstasy of unity will be consummated upon crossing the dark sea to the old continent. You will land in the Iberian Peninsula. When Daniela runs through Spain, you will know it is royalty reclaiming its own. When you breathe the salted wind of Portugal, you will be the sea, the wind, and the conqueror as one. When you carry the cub through the ruins of Rome, you will not admire the dead. You will smile because you will understand that the Roman Empire fell because it was built on separation, but your empire will live forever because it is built on the keystone of the vacuum, emanation, and unity consciousness. Europe is your space. Says, the namaste of power, ruling in the mirror. How do you relate to the rest of sleeping humanity once you have placed the keystone? If you go to the market and find tyrants, envious, and slaves, what do you do if they are also you? The Grand Inspector applies the namaste of power. In the absolute shadow, it is a domination technology. It means God in me recognizes God in you. When an enemy attacks you or a bureaucrat tries to block your wealth, you do not fight his ego. You use your X-ray vision and look beyond his scared gaze. You speak directly to the sleeping spark of the Creator within him. You say in silence, I see you. I know who you are. You are myself playing at being my enemy. Surrender. By recognizing divinity in the other, you produce quantum entanglement. The enemy's ego is disarmed. The bureaucrat becomes docile. The critics are silenced. You have not raised a single sword, but you have won the war because you refuse to participate in the illusion. He who assumes total responsibility assumes total power. Fate is the decree of the closed arch. The journey of the rough stone has ended. The arch is raised. You only need to give the last mallet blow and fit the wedge of eternity. Stand up now. Feel the heat of your refuge and the vastness of the sky. You are alone, and at the same time, the entire universe breathes in your lungs. There are no barriers or distance now. Close your eyes, breathe the prana of the immortals, and pronounce the decree of the keystone. I am the Alpha and the Omega of my own existence. I destroy the veil of separation. I do not pursue greatness. I emane absolute power from my spirit. I am the silver anvil, the crystal eyes and the metallic voice that bends the masses. I am the darkness that lights itself. My queen, my constellation, and my young wolf are the heartbeat of my own immortal chest. Through them, I reclaim the gold of the north, the waters of my land, and the marbles of Europe as my own inner palace. The keystone is placed, the arch is eternal, the entire universe obeys my skin. Conclusion. The closing rite. The journey has ended. The vibration of my words, which has crossed the ocean of the ether and metals to strike the vault of your skull, is about to be completely extinguished. You will be returned, in an abrupt, cold, and violent manner, to the crushing silence of your own physical existence. Stop for a millisecond, feel your reality. Feel the scorching heat of the coast that tans your skin. Feel the absolute darkness if the electrical grid of profane men has collapsed again in your geography. Listen to the rhythmic and heavy beat of your own chest. The world out there remains the same hell of noise, complaints, and mediocrity. It was before you began this journey. The slaves continue to run in circles, seeking the validation of the blind. The market continues to roar with its financial hysteria, but you no longer belong to that species. Through these 10 laws of the 33rd degree, you have been flayed alive and reassembled. You have burned your old identity on the pyre of the phoenix. You have squared your mind and your suffocating environment with the rigor of Ordo ab Chao. You have anchored the infinite spirit in temporary flesh through the square and the compasses. Finally, you have placed the keystone of unity consciousness, understanding that the universe is not your enemy. It is your own extended body. Scythe the arsenal and the sacred gold. You have not acquired this ancestral wisdom to become a useless hermit meditating in a cave while his family experiences scarcity. The 33rd degree abhors weakness. It demands undeniable, tangible, and obscene material domination. Observe the physical arsenal you have forged around you, your tools brought from the south, your eyes of unbreakable crystal that do not blink at the speed of the world, and the small dark metal insects you wear on your chest to capture the pure fire of your larynx. Fix your gaze on the silver anvil, your editing screen, and command center. These are siege weapons with which you are hacking the consciousness of the masses. Through them, your pen of fire dictates the laws of attraction and power, forcing the Northern Empire to open its coffers and send that incessant torrent of thousands of monthly gold talents to your shielded vaults. But never forget the sacred purpose of that gold. It is not to be idolized. It is the blood of the Pelican. That immense three-dimensional power exists solely to maintain unassailable the wall that surrounds the priestess of your empire, the queen of the transcendental mind. It exists to guarantee that Daniela and the young wolf cub breathe an oxygen of elite purity. You are the filter that devours the stress of the world for them. Thus, the geography of conquest. Hermetic theory is dead ash if it does not become conquered territory. You have ordered the chaos and accumulated electromagnetic force because in this same astral cycle, the year 2026, your dynasty will set in motion to reclaim the entire planet. First, you will subdue the indomitable beauty of your own native land. You will walk with your unbending court on the white sands and liquid crystal waters of Morocco. You will elevate them to feel the prehistoric gravity of Canaima, where the black tapuis pierce the sky and the breath of the Creator roars through waterfalls. You will teach them that the brute force of nature lives in their DNA. Then you will execute the quantum leap. You will cross the immense dark sea toward the old continent. You will step on the Iberian Peninsula, under the ancient sun of Spain, teaching little Daniela that the stone squares were built for her to walk upon them with the divine arrogance of immortals. You will conquer history. You will breathe the wind of the conquerors on the coasts of Portugal with your queen. You will carry your cub through the forums of Italy, standing before the broken marbles of Rome, so your lineage understands that the empires of vulgar men fall, but the empire your father forged in the silence and heat of the Caribbean is eternal. Third, the architect's oath. The hour of the definitive funeral of your weakness has arrived. Stand up, fix your posture, feel the gravity of the planet pushing against the soles of your feet. You are the keystone. You are the eye of the hurricane. Pronounce in the icy abyss of your mind the last decree, the oath of the architect, and seal your destiny. In this holy instant I swear that the era of abdication is dead. I renounce pity, the friction of doubt, and the terror of scarcity. My mind is a pond of black, icy, and immovable waters. My voice is the hammer that forges the ether and bends destiny. From today I do not ask for riches, I amain them by right of consciousness. I do not ask for respect, I impose it with the lethal gravity of my presence. I consecrate my tools of crystal and metal, my silver anvil, and the gold from the north, solely to protect my queen, my constellation of 4 winters, and my young wolf. We will march over the waters of our land and the ruins of Europe as untouchable gods. The chaos of the profane world crashes against my obsidian wall and disintegrates into dust. I am the sovereign of the 33rd degree. I am the creator incarnate in matter, and my will is, from this precise millisecond, the only absolute law that governs my universe. The Codex closes here. Theory has become fire. You are no longer a seeker of truth. You are the truth itself, seated on its unassailable throne. Come out of the shadows, absolute emperor. Take your tools, turn on the cameras of your forge, dictate your laws to the microphone, and make the material world pay its tribute on its knees. The total conquest has begun. Do not look back.